Good morning, everybody. I am glad you're tuning in. We have a real treat. Every once in a while, I get to meet somebody who just completely blows me away. Not just their background clerking for Supreme Court justices or writing the Constitution for a country, but their commitment to making something happen. So I am thrilled to introduce you, if you don't know him yet, to Lawrence Lessig. Lawrence, how are you this morning?
So great to see you, Seth. Thanks for having me.
Um, so we're here to talk about strategy, but in your case, I want to talk about systems and I want to talk about the games that make systems run. And in the book, I talk a lot about how systems have invisible forces, that we do things because other people are doing them. We do things because of our boss or our boss's boss or the people near us. And you have been working at the forefront of so many challenges that many of us face. If anyone here has ever used a Creative Commons document or image, you can thank Lawrence Lessig for it. Him and his team of what's the opposite of a ne'er do well? Useful do gooders have created the possibility for things to go forward. So we're here to talk about corruption. We're here to talk about the state of Maine. We're here to talk about why any sane person would run for president. So, why don't I stop talking and you tell everybody for just a minute or two? What is it that is the arc of your career? What is the change you seek to make?
Yeah, well, I love your focus on systems. About actually almost exactly 18 years ago, a young kid came to me named Aaron Swartz. And at that time, I was working on copyright and internet policy. And Aaron said to me, "Why do you think you're going to ever make any progress on the issues of copyright or network neutrality or whatever the issue is, so long as we have this deeply corrupted political system?" And I said, Aaron, it's not my field. And he said, "You mean as an academic?" And I said, "Yeah, as an academic, I do copyright policy and internet policy." And he said, "Okay, but what about as a citizen? Is it your field as a citizen?" And literally that night, I was in Berlin. He had come to the Chaos Computer Conference. It was just after Christmas 2006. I committed to him that I was going to give up everything I was doing on copyright and internet policy to take up this challenge, because I realized, to steal from Henry David Thoreau, though it's in the public domain, so it's not technically stealing, for every 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil, there's one striking at the root. And what Aaron was right about is, it doesn't matter what your issue is. It could be the most important issues in the world, which are not copyright policy. It's climate change, or the incredible devastation of middle class in America, or healthcare, or the fact that Gen Z and Gen Y have really an incredibly terrible future here, that we've left them. Doesn't matter what the issue is. If you don't address the structural system of corruption that makes it so our representatives can't focus on what people actually need them to focus on, you're not going to address any of those issues sensibly. So it's not that corruption's the most important issue, it's just the first issue. If we don't fix this, we can't fix anything else. So in the 18 years since he's committed me to that cause, I've tried every goddamn strategy I could possibly think of to try to surface this and get it to a place where we could win something big. And I think Maine is finally the place that we're going to see an extraordinary success. So we have an initiative on the ballot in Maine. There's an incredible campaign in Maine to get it passed. I'm pretty confident they're going to get it passed. The polling is pretty solid. That flat out takes on super PACs. Flat out says we're going to limit the size of contributions to independent political action committees. And what I've been convinced of, I didn't see this at first, but what I've been convinced of is that, the Supreme Court's never addressed the question whether James Madison's First Amendment guarantees Elon Musk the right to spend unlimited amounts of money or create super PACs that can spend unlimited amounts of money. Never addressed the super PAC question. And when they actually address it, all they'll have to do is apply their existing principles to a set of facts they've never considered. They don't have to overturn Citizens United. They don't have to change anything. Just follow their rules. They will declare that super PACs are not constitutionally required. A mistake made by our lower court 14 years ago will be reversed, and we will have a chance once again to build the movement to address this corrupting influence of money in politics without having to do what many think is impossible, overturn Citizens United or amend the Constitution. So I never thought this would be my life. I'm kind of angry Aaron left us so that I can't to force him to be part of this fight, but that's the fight I've been on and will be on until we win.
Yeah. R.I.P. Aaron. This is a beautiful way to state what you're talking about. I want to challenge one thing, which is this idea of the big win. You've already had lots of wins in the sense that very few people are actually opposed to what you're talking about. Your wins are making it normal to talk about this. Your wins are creating the conditions, the scaffolding for other people to join in, right? And so for people watching at home, corruption is a great way to talk about taking money out of the system. Because when people say taking money out of the system, our eyes glaze over. But why is money in the system? Money is in the system to corrupt it. That is its purpose, to get it to do something it wouldn't do if the money wasn't there.
Yeah, nicely put. Yeah.
And so the ability you have as a serial nonprofit starting entrepreneur is you understand, as you just eloquently described for the Supreme Court, what the game is. That there are rules, there are boundaries, there are ways that sometimes people cheat on the game, but you understand how it will unfold if we create the conditions for it to get there, right? And the metaphor here is really strong because lots of us wrestle with systems that we're not happy with. I've spent a lot of the last bunch of years working on the climate problem. And any given node in the system is going to do what it's doing because it's in its interest to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And so the magic of corruption is it forces nodes to do things that we don't want, magic in the evil sense of magic. And so what I find extraordinary about your combination of care and insight is that you figured out that one state, not even a giant state, passing a referendum because of the game in their state of how a referendum can work, can change the conversation across the entire globe, right? Mm-hmm. So am I making stuff up or does that match the way you're seeing it?
It's exactly right. When I started this fight, when I got into this fight, I didn't start it. There were no super PACs. And the focus was to get people to recognize that if we have a system where members of Congress and candidates for Congress spend anywhere between 30 and 70% of their time raising money, they can't help but develop a sixth sense, a constant awareness of how what they do might affect their ability to raise money. They become shapeshifters as they constantly adjust their view in light of what they know will help them to raise money. But those days were the good old days, because what they were thinking about is how do I make sure I raise money from the 10,000 people I need to raise money from? Now, in the days of super PACs, they're not thinking about the 10,000 people. They're thinking about the 100 people or the 10 people who will come in and drop 10 million, 100 million. There's one case of more than $1 billion into a super PAC so that the super PAC can change the conversation in ways that help them. We forget that the Republican Party used to care about climate change. John McCain had a climate change plan. He thought it was better than Obama's. It's arguable whether it was better than Obama's or not. But after the super PACs were created, the Koch brothers decided that they wanted to change the conversation. So they said, any Republican who even acknowledges the truth of climate change will find themselves primaried, meaning they'll run a candidate against them in the primary. And almost overnight, those two brothers made it impossible for one of the two major political parties to address what is the most important global catastrophic threat we face right now.
Right.
And that's because of super PACs. So we've got to unravel this one step at a time. Take down super PACs, then we can go back to the 10,000 person problem, and we can maybe get to a democracy where the members are just doing their job by figuring out what Americans want, all Americans want, not the tiny, tiny few who fund their campaigns or the even smaller number who run the super PACs.
So one of the secrets of building a system that scales is to seek out an insatiable desire. So Harvard University, 400 years old, began as a training ground for a few dozen divinity students and discovered this insatiable desire in the public for status, for authority, for finding a well-trodden path. And then you end up with the college industrial complex. It doesn't happen in one day. It happens in hundreds of years. The insatiable desires are small. There aren't very many of them. And one of the things that you've discovered is that people who have extraordinary amounts of money have a very finite set of insatiable desires. And if you show up and offer them power and influence, they will happily pay for it. And all the precepts we have and the systems we've built aren't accommodating that. They don't know what to do with that. And it bends it all in the right direction. Here's a note from Jean, who I think was lucky enough to know you. So as we've just discussed, Jean, this is where we get to the idea of games and systems. And then time is the other thing. So Lawrence, you've been doing this for a long time. Tell us for a moment what was going through your head when you decided to run for president, because that seems insane to me.
Well, technically I committed to the idea of becoming a candidate in the Democratic primary because I thought if I could be a candidate in the Democratic primary and be on stage in those debates and focus the conversation on the way that this corruption makes it impossible for Democrats to actually achieve what Democrats say they want to achieve, it could have moved the needle in that framing. This is the year Hillary Clinton was running. If we could have gotten Hillary to talk about her anti-corruption program, which in my view was better than any of them, better than Bernie Sanders. She had an amazing anti-corruption program inside of her platform. She never talked about it. But if she had made that the center of what she was talking about, if I could at least tweaked her to get her to make that the center of what she was talking about, then Donald Trump couldn't have painted her as corrupt Hillary the very first moment out of the box when he was the nominee. So I said I would run if I could, raise $1 million in a month. We did it in 3 weeks. At that point, I had raised more than half the other field of Republicans and Democrats together, and the numbers made it look like I wouldn't make it on the first debate, but on the second debate, we were coming down to the wire, and my campaign manager called me and said, "We're going to be in the debate. You're going to have the numbers, the polling numbers, to be able to be in the debate." And then at the end of the week, the Democratic Party called my campaign manager and said, "We've changed the rules, and your candidate is never going to be in the debate. You could just make sure he knows that. We will never allow him on that stage." So it was a gamble. If the world had come around to realize what I think most people now realize, that this is the issue we need to fix first, whether it was me or somebody else, we would have had somebody who would have fixed that issue first. But it was a gamble, costly, personally costly. But I would take it again. If there was a 15% chance to make that the focus of a campaign, or at least something that everybody realized was the thing that would be achieved, I'd take that. I'd take that gamble anytime.
Well, thank you for the guts and the bravery. Here's what I would, as we begin to wrap this up, point out. The public watches debates, metaphorical debates, not just the formal debates, with the sound off. And one of the challenges of being a wonk, and on a good day I'm a wonk, on most days you're a wonk, is that we want to get the right answer. We want to explain in detail all of the things that came before and the things that will come after. But the public is watching with the sound off. And the magic of your campaign in Maine is simple, which is the word corruption. That's all you have to do is hear one word, and you don't have to understand any of the details. And that is the essence of popular governance, is we've got to figure out how to influence the roots of the system, as you pointed out from Thoreau. And I do love the fact that you are the only person that Stephen Colbert has ever given branding advice to, telling you that Root Strikers is a terrible name, and it probably is. But
that was John Stewart. That was
John
Colbert.
Stewart, even better. So what I want to just deliver to people as we start our Wednesday is this: you need to see the system. You need to understand the roots and why the nodes in the roots are acting the way they're acting. And then you have a chance to come up with a vivid and urgent message that over time grows in resonance. And so you've been at this for 18 years, and there's no question that your resonance is increasing, that more people are getting the joke. And we can have very useful conversations on both sides of many arguments. But on this one, there's almost no one who's in favor of corruption. And so now the essence of the argument is, this is what everyone else is doing, as we're seeing in Maine. Do you want to do it too? This is the time. We are the people. If not now, when? So that was a great rant. I hope mine helped a little bit. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Lawrence, it's always good to see you. Keep making this ruckus.
Thank you,
We
Seth.
need you, sir. Thanks.